Okay, good. Says it's got feed. I have no idea. Ah. Just live on Facebook. All right, you folks are probably going to see a little bit of a delay here, but it's about time to get this started. Setting up the stream to the PTSDog group in Facebook right now. The Facebook group is going to be running behind. It has a slight delay. So I also will not be able to monitor the comments in the Facebook group. So if you're joining and you're seeing this on the Facebook group, please go up to the top post in the group there, the post I put this morning, hit the link to come to the Zoom webinar. I will not be able to see your questions in the Facebook group. So please, again, come to the webinar and post your questions here in the Q&A. There's a Q&A option, or in the chat here in the webinar, so that I can see what your questions are. I cannot interact with you on Facebook. So welcome. This is the second webinar. Shane, good to see you. We're going to wait for a couple more people to join us. I know there are a few people who are planning to join and attend. Hey, Brian, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Sorry. The DV radio producer is pinging me and asking me questions about what we're doing right here. So we're going to talk about ethics today. We're going to talk about what I call the ethical handler. It's, of course, part of artful handling, meaning again, accountability, responsibility, and training. You don't have to, if you take responsibility to fulfill the training of your animal, you don't need to be held accountable. It's that simple. But we're going to talk about ethical handling, and we're going to talk about some behaviors that are prevalent and some opinions that are prevalent in service dog groups, circles, and why I think they're wrong. And again, just like last week, I'm probably going to say some things that really piss people off. I don't care. Okay, these are my thoughts, these are my opinions, this is my experience, and whether you agree or not, whether it upsets you or not, I'm not necessarily calling individuals out. So if something that I say when I talk about this makes you upset because you feel like I'm calling you out, whenever you point one finger at somebody, three more are pointing back at you. Okay. Think about that. If something I say hits a chord and really upsets you, think about who you're upset at. Is it me for pointing out that the emperor's not wearing any clothes? Or are you upset because I'm right and you're guilty of the behavior that we're going to discuss? So once again, before I really get into the subject, if you're joining this and watching it on the Facebook live stream, I cannot interact with you on Facebook Live. I need you to go to the post in the PTS Dog group and click on the link to join the Zoom webinar. That is where I can interact with you. I can't do both because I'm broadcasting through Zoom and I cannot track what you say on Facebook real time. Brian, if you're able, if you could drop that link into the comments on Facebook, because it looks like I'm fairly certain people are trying to interact on Facebook. If you could drop that link into the comments, uh, I would appreciate that. Um, and we'll get started. And I will be able to go back after and look at comments, but I'd really like to interact with you live. So please join the webinar, the Zoom webinar. You do not have to have Zoom. You can just click on the link that's in the post. It'll bring you into a meeting room where you can watch and you can type and ask questions and things. Um, so please, if you can, join the webinar. All right. Um, have a friend who is a handler, who's a member of the group, who follows the PTSDog page, and who has a service dog with one eye. And she has been belittled, attacked, berated, uh, generally just really treated poorly um, by members of other groups. And I'm not going to name the groups. I'm not going to say, such and such did this or anything like that. I'm not going to call individuals out. But here's the thing. Just like us humans with disabilities want to be able to find a way to get back out in there and do something, to have a job, feel employed, feel like we're of use. Um, in the same way, dogs like to have jobs. Uh, dogs were originally bred to do something, to have a function, to work. Dogs were bred to work. So when you and obviously over the centuries, dogs have been bred down, and a lot of breeds are no longer working breeds. But when we're talking about service dogs, we're usually looking at breeds that have a job, because that drive is part of what we use to train the dog. Um, so we use that dog's predilection to work to give it a job, to train it to work for us as a service dog. Now, there are some cases where you might find a dog, a service dog, that does have a disability of its own. One eye missing. Can the dog still see? Absolutely. If you're not using the dog as a seeing eye dog, if it's a psychiatric service dog, I have no problem with being able to find that dog a job. It's not doing guide dog work where it needs to have perfect depth perception, be able to guide its handler around. It's doing PTSD or other psychiatric work. Just like you, the human wants to have a purpose and have a job. Why are you saying that dog can't because it's got a disability? Okay, that kind of disability where it's something simple like one eye. Or another example, I saw in a group. Um, I saw a group just lambasting a handler who has a deaf service dog for PTSD. And okay, Brian, thank you for letting me know that Facebook Live stopped running. I think it's got to be something on my end, because when we tested it, when why is this going like this? When TV radio tested it, it worked fine. So it's probably my platform. Okay. So anyway, I saw these people just lambasting, just brutally lambasting this poor woman who had a deaf PTSD service dog. Well, the dog doesn't. I'm going to try it one more time, Brian. So keep an eye on it for me. The dog responds to hand signals. Okay. Um, which is fine. I know a lot of people who train their dogs with hand signals, and the words are kind of superfluous. That's perfectly fine. I think actually that's pretty cool if you can give your dog hand signals, so that, especially in a public situation, Ajax Malamute, perfect example. He's trained Ajax with hand signals, and he uses nonsense words. So he might give Ajax the hand signal to sit, um, but he uses fast food restaurant names. He'll say Taco Bell, but give him the hand signal sit, and Ajax will sit. And people think that's hilarious. They think that's awesome. Um, I think it's hilarious, actually. I think that's really clever of him because it does something very specific. It's a distraction, right? It takes the focus off of him, who is feeling conscientious because he's got PTSD, and puts it on the dog. Okay. So, a deaf dog is not necessarily, I mean, think about it. If you have a deaf dog, PTSD service dog operates off of scent, the sound or smell of adrenaline dumping into your system, the smell of cortisol. Okay. And that's what they should be trained to respond to, um, is those changes in scent as you respond, as you react uh, to your surroundings and begin exhibiting symptoms. Uh, a PTSD service dog doesn't necessarily have to be able to see. Another reason why perhaps a deaf dog would be great for PTSD is, again, vision, sight. Um, Skeeter operates as my forward observer, and so if he's not being distracted by the clumsy guy dropping a case of water bottles over there, so that he looks, but he's looking at where we're going because that's what his job is. You see what I'm saying? He's not being distracted from that. I don't have a problem. What my concern is if the dog has an issue, has a disability, are you maintaining the dog's health and putting that first at all times? Is the dog capable of performing the tasks you need it to do, including public access? And does the dog have a good quality of life? As long as those three factors are met, I don't care. Perfect. Another great example: the Colonel is the uh, spokes doggy for Tadsaw. The Colonel has three legs. When Skeeter and I met Bart and the Colonel in San Antonio a couple of years ago, I said, I had no idea the Colonel only had three legs. And Bart said, shh, don't tell him that. Doesn't slow Colonel down a bit. Yet you have people who will scream and holler and rage and personally attack handlers who have a dog that has any kind of issue, health issue. Now, there are health issues. I will tell you, don't work a dog that's got dysplasia, that's got hip dysplasia. If you're working a dog in public, walking it around, taking it places, and every step is painful for the dog, you should not be doing that. That's abusive. Okay. Skeeter's got arthritis from an injury when he was 2. It hadn't showed up for years, and then it started showing in the spring and in the fall. I can tell when he's having issues, and we give him medication, and it helps. And when he gets his medication, he's not hurting, and he wants to do his job. I'm very, very conscientious of his capabilities and his ability. And at the first sign that he's hurting, if we're out, we go home so that I can give him his meds. I give him his meds on a regular schedule. He gets CBD every other day as a maintenance, and it works. And on bad days, he gets an extra dose. Okay. That is not, it is, he's old. He's 9 years old. A dog his size at 9 years is a senior dog. Christy says Gabriel went deaf at 11 years old, but could read hand signs and worked fine with hand signs. If the dog is capable of performing the job, the dog is healthy except for whatever the issue is, and the dog has a good quality of life, just like you're trying to rejoin the workforce, trying to do things right. That's why you're using a service dog, or possibly one of the reasons why you're using a service dog is so that you can get back out and about, do things. Same concept. If you're going to say, well, a three-legged dog can't be a service dog, well, then a one-legged person can't work. Same logic. That's your logic. Yeah, see, it dropped out again, Brian. May have to change browsers next time. So, this is the thing. So that's in my mind, and in my mind, when we're talking about ethical handling of a service dog, that is the lowest level of what I consider ethical behavior as a service dog handler is the physical health and capabilities of your dog. As long as your dog is healthy, even if it's got a disability like it's missing an eye or it's got three legs, if the dog is healthy, capable, and able to continue, we train these dogs to be at our sides and help us 24/7, and they want to do that. Skeeter gets mad. Skeeter, I'm having all kinds of trouble with Skeeter lately because we're not going out and working 2 or 3 or 4 times a week, even if it's just a quick run to the store. Okay, he's going batshit crazy because we're not going out. We went from taking the kid to school every morning, taking mama to work, picking the kid up, stop and pick something up at the store, run over here. Hey, let's stop and have lunch. Active, freely active, and running around and doing things to not going anywhere for days and days at a time. Skeeter's going crazy right now. Is he working at home? Absolutely. He kept my blood sugar up yesterday. I got involved on the lathe, got a little too excited with the project. Skeeter's like, oh, time to go in the house, Dad, right now. Drug me into the house so that I could eat some lunch. And he was right. My sugar was low. I'm in there on the lathe, cutting walnut, which has a wonderful scent, but a strong scent. And he came from outside of the shop into the shop to come headbutt me on the leg, nudge me, and get me away from this strong smelling wood and sawdust and all in the air. I mean, he could smell my blood sugar from 30 feet away outside of the shop. I have learned quickly listen to the dog when it comes to that. So, like I said, if the dog's capable of performing the tasks, I certainly would not condone using a three-legged dog for mobility. That's a little no. Okay, that's unethical. However, a three-legged dog for PTSD or psychiatric work, absolutely. You're not asking the dog to perform physical feats and run marathons. Okay, you're asking the dog to alert you and respond and help calm you when you're dealing with symptomology of psychiatric disability. I don't have a problem with that. Okay. And everybody who screams and hollers, "Oh, you can't do that. It's unethical." You know what? Go look in the mirror. Are you trying to get a job? Do you work? But you're disabled. So by your own argument, you shouldn't be able to work at all. Okay. Let the dog have a job that gives it a fulfilling life. If the dog has the capability, the desire to do so, who are you to say no? As long as you're not putting the dog in harm's way, as long as the dog is healthy and has a good quality of life, I'm not going to argue with you. We can tell, we can see when a dog is unhealthy. Okay. I don't jump on people when I see an obese dog. However, I do understand how much damage obesity does to to that dog. Okay. I don't know. I mean, if you look at pictures of Skeeter's ideal for his age and his size. He ranges between 99.8 and 100.6 or so pounds. And he literally does lose about a pound of fur every spring and every fall. When he blows his coat, he loses a pound of fur. That's been confirmed with the veterinarian. A pound of fur falls off of him. So he's right at 99 pounds. Um, his he's got a profound, pronounced tuck, pronounced waist from above. You can't see his ribs because he's fluffy, but his rear ribs are palpable. You can feel, uh, and there's no fat on the dog, not of any significant amount. Same with Boogie. Boogie's a completely different breed. As an American Staffordshire Terrier and Boxer mix. She's built like a brick, but she's got a good solid tuck. She has a defined waist, and she is absolutely rock solid. That dog is muscularly solid. Like Skeeter's a strong dog, but pound for pound, I think Boogie could whoop his ass. She, because of her size, can't pull her as much as Skeeter. But if we scaled it to their size, I think Boogie's probably 30% stronger than Skeeter because she is just nothing but solid rock. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's impressive. Unfortunately, there's a big rock between her ears too, so that's something we have to deal with. Anyway, so what do you do about these people who want to hound you about ethics and using a dog with a disability? Well, first of all, nobody's the service dog police. Nobody, no one, not me, not any of my admins, not any members of the group, not admins of any other service dog groups on Facebook or anywhere. There is no service dog police. Okay. So they can rant and rave and call you names and do whatever they want. But guess what? You have this really great function where you can block person. You have another great function where you can leave a group when they do a dog pile. Okay. Nobody is forcing, nobody is, um, nobody's forcing you to stay, especially on Facebook. Nobody's forcing you to stay in groups that you don't agree with or where people uh, or behave that way. Leave. You don't need that negativity. Okay. Nobody can tell you how to use your service dog, with very few exceptions. Okay. They can tell you that no, you are not supposed to uh, have an aggression trained dog. Okay. We all know this. The Department of Justice has made it clear if a service dog is bite trained, it loses the protection. You lose the protection to take a bite trained dog with you as a service dog under the Americans with Disabilities Act, because the general public has a right to expect to be safe when there's a service dog in their presence. Okay. And a bite trained dog that's trained to injure is legally considered a weapon. So at that point, um, the reasonable argument, we're discussing legal case stuff here. The reasonable argument is at that point that dog becomes a dangerous weapon. And no matter how well trained it is, just like with a service dog, with any dog, no matter how well trained it is, it's still a dog. And so you get the legal thinking. I don't necessarily agree with this, but the legal thinking is you're going to get injured less by a dog that's not trained how to bite than you will by the dog that is trained how to bite. Now, I disagree with that because I know several people who do train um, bite trained dogs, and those dogs are taught to bite in specific places in specific ways and to release it with specific commands. And I think there's a big difference in injury between a dog that's trained to grab your arm and a dog that's overreacting and lashes out at your face. Um, yeah. So Christine says that every German Shepherd breeder she talked with about her next service dog wanted her to have a protection bred dog because of PTSD. Yeah, no. Um, the physical presence of a dog imparting a feeling of security for the handler is not legally a task, but especially with specific breeds, is sufficient, in my opinion. It's honestly, ever since I've had a 100-pound wolf next to me, no, he is not a wolf. He's purebred Alaskan Malamute, but people are uneducated and think Skeeter's a wolf. Less people mess with me in an aggressive, like, we're going to mug that guy kind of manner. Okay. Uh, so, there is absolutely a security factor to having a dog by your side. And certain breeds, of course, are related to security and protection more than others. A Malamute is, anybody who knows anything about Alaskan Malamutes knows they're not protection animals, but he's big and intimidating looking. And that intimidation factor has always been all I've needed. I have had people cross the street because they think Skeeter looks scary. Skeeter wouldn't hurt a fly, but hey, I'm not complaining when they cross the street rather than risk something that's not going to happen, because that, provides more space for me, more personal bubble, more personal space. I know several female handlers who handle German Shepherds, Belgian Malinois, uh, Doberman Pinscher, um, American Staffordshire Terriers, pit bulls, because of the intimidation factor, because those breeds people equate to danger. Dogs should be giant marshmallows. Never hurt a fly. Well, they should be if they're a service dog. But you know what? That's a great quality. That's a great thing to have, is that intimidation factor. It becomes unethical, according to the law, according to the Department of Justice, when you do bite train that dog, because at that point, legally, that dog has the standing as a weapon. You cannot have a service revolver, as in, oh, no, this is my service revolver. I could take it anywhere with me. You know, we're not going to get into the constitutionality of gun control laws, but you understand what I'm saying. It's the same thing. I don't carry around a say, okay, machete, because I want to feel secure. I'm just going to walk around carrying a machete. Okay, well, at that point, it's a weapon, and if I'm getting agitated and waving my machete around at people, right, at that point, it becomes a threat, because I'm angry and I have a giant knife and I'm waving it. Okay, same thing can be legally at that point, it's terroristic threats. Legally, the same kind of thing can be said with a bite trained dog. There's a very specific reason, and a lot of confusion back at the when they did the final rules in 2010 about service dogs. There was a lot of discussion and confusion about what minimal protective what, minimal protection training meant. Okay, because the in the federal record, it describes the service dogs may have minimal protection training. Now, that does not mean bite training. What it means is such as creating a physical buffer or block between you and other people. Okay, that is what that phrase has been determined by the Department of Justice to mean in regards to a service dog having minimal protection training. Also, the words non-aggressive. In other words, not trained to bite, not trained to growl, not trained to attack. And the reason for this is, again, because legally, uh, the Department of Justice has said that the general public has the right to expect that they are safe around a service dog, that they are not endangered by the presence of that dog. Once the dog has bite training, it becomes dangerous. Do I agree? Well, I do. I mean, I do and I don't. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, if somebody physically attacked me, Skeeter would defend me. I have not trained Skeeter to do that. He is not trained to do that, but I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that he would. Um, because he's not been trained to, however, legally, that falls under a response to provocation, which, when you read the language of the ADA, says that a dog can't be aggressive and can't bark unless provoked. Okay, remember we talked about this last week. We talked about how the ADA allows for dogs to be dogs. Okay, if your service dog is provoked by law, your dog can respond. Okay. So let's go back to that word ethical again. And let's talk about the ethical uh, nuances of this situation. An unethical handler will not make sure that their dog has been trained to behave. And so they might have a dog that's reactive and barks and goes nuts when it sees another dog. I've encountered that dog multiple times. Skeeter and I have encountered that dog multiple times. It's not got adequate training and is reactive and sees Skeeter and loses its mind. Only in 2 cases has Skeeter responded. One, we were at Walmart, of course. This woman had a bully breed. I don't use the term pit bull because unless it is an American pit bull terrier, there's no such thing as a pit bull. It was a bully breed. It was a big dog, probably 60 or 70 pounds, bigger than Boogie. And I can't describe. I'm trying not to gear shame, but this dog was in a crappy, ratty vest, and it had a shredded, torn, dirty pink tutu on, so it wasn't well groomed. And this dog was not under control. And we turned a corner. We didn't know the dog was there. Turned a corner, and coming into the Walmart, we turned over towards the uh, pharmacy. And on the right side, in the parallel aisles to the right, was this woman and this dog. And this dog saw Skeeter and went nuts and started charging Skeeter, dragging its handler. Skeeter let out one bark, which was just both. It was both a surprise and warning. Oh, hey, look, Dad, stay back. One bark. I got him steered down the aisle to the left, and we interjected the cart between that dog that was charging him and Skeeter. And I had him focus on me, and we moved away from the provocation. Okay. Under the law, that was a perfectly acceptable bark from Skeeter. That dog was charging him. That is, if that is a clear picture of legal provocation. Another example, we went to a kind of a big weekend farmers market festival kind of thing. And a local training organization had a booth set up, and we went to talk to them. We're in contact with them. They are a cooperative training organization, and they have one client whose dog is a purebred boxer. She's gorgeous, and she's young, and she is very high strung. And she was kind of doing the same thing. Wanted to get to Skeeter. And Skeeter let out one bark. Now, in that situation, Skeeter's weird. Skeeter knows that when he runs into a dog in a public place, um, that dog's supposed to behave the way he behaves. And Skeeter wants to try and not herd dogs that are misbehaving in public. So he wants to try and get him to calm down and settle down. Hey, that's not how you're supposed to act. And he gave that dog one bark, like, hey, knock it off. I said, act, Skeeter, knock it off. Watch me, leave it, focus, got him refocused on me, and he was fine. I didn't really get to mate, but I got to talk a little bit with a handler of an amazing German or Doberman pinscher. This was a monster pinscher. I don't think I've ever seen a pinscher this big. And he told me the lines came from Russia, and that dog weighed every ounce of the 100-pound Skeeter weighs. But it had those classic pinscher lines, and just, I mean, absolutely incredible dog, gorgeous. And Skeeter and that dog were nose to nose across the table, looking at each other like, whatever, it's just another day. Um, So, again, if we're going to talk about ethics and you want to talk about being an ethical handler, we want to talk about being an artful handler, making sure that you take the responsibility to train your dog. Now, that's ethical, okay? Making sure that your dog is trained adequately and that you are maintaining control. The other side of that coin is handling your dog. And handling your dog is an active term, it's a verb to handle. It is not a noun as in a handle that you hold on to, but it is how you actively maintain control and direction of your dog while you are in public, how you handle your dog. Okay. In order to handle your dog appropriately, first of all, you have got to train your dog, make sure it understands what's expected of it, what a command means. And then you have to um, be aware of your surroundings and be able to respond through commands to your dog to those changes. Dog comes rushing at us at Walmart. I hook Skeeter left, tell him to focus on me and move him away. I'm handling my dog. He let out a bark. I said, no, we don't bark. Leave it. Focus on me. Let's move out of the way. I will gladly step in between Skeeter and an attacking dog and take a bite. However, Skeeter would more than gladly shove me out of the way and protect himself and me. It's mutual. So, as the human part of the equation, it's my responsibility to get us out of danger from that charging dog. Okay, this is artful and ethical handling. These are the kinds of things that we need to talk about when we talk about ethics. We don't need to talk about whether or not, if a dog has one leg is missing or one eye is missing, that well then it can't work. That what, if the dog's capable of performing the tasks that are needed of it, is capable of public access and can and has a good quality of life and health and perfect health otherwise, doesn't bother me. I don't care. Does not bother me. Okay. Excuse me. If my voice starts getting scratchy, I promise you it is not the Rona. Pollen season is really heavy right now, and it's takes a lot a lot of antihistamines right now to be able to even breathe. Um, okay, so Christy's saying that she and Gabriel were charged in Walmart by two guide dogs who drug their handlers towards them. Blind. All right, let's talk about this. This is an ethics situation. This in this situation, the ethics are on the part of the training organization that provided the guide dogs to these poor hapless folks who happen to be blind and who relied on those dogs and had apparently not enough knowledge on their own to understand that a dog, no matter how well trained it is a dog, and that as the human, no matter what your disability is, it is your responsibility to maintain control of that dog. Um, and then again, ethically, to hand over a dog to a person with a disability such as blindness who may not be able to see why the dog is responding the way it is. Not training the, I mean, there has to be a stop command, especially if you're sightless, if you're unsighted, if you're blind, whatever word you want to use, and you're using a seeing eye dog, there has to be a panic command of some kind to be able to say, whoa, 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 we need to stop so I can figure out what's going on. But you need to train the handler to try and find ways to figure out what's going on when there's that kind of response. I mean, honestly, it's very difficult for a person with who's blind to train a seeing eye dog, um, if they're completely blind. I know of partially sighted people who train seeing eye dogs, and they're very successful dogs, owner trained. But most seeing eye dogs are trained by a third party. And one of the biggest downfalls, we talked about this last week, one of the biggest downfalls of third party trained or training organizations is they don't train the handlers to handle their dogs. They don't teach them what their rights are under the law, meaning that teach them to understand um, the ADA, understand that it is your right to handle a service dog as part of your disability. They don't teach them that. They don't teach them how to deal with access challenges when they happen with an understanding of the law. They just teach them, well, just say it's my right, it's federal law, you have to let me in, but they don't teach them why. They don't explain the law. They don't teach them how to pick up what their dog's telling them. There's no bond when somebody else trains your dog. And this goes triply. So, I mean, seeing eye dogs are trained not to bond very much. They're the robotic training model that a lot of the third party training organizations use is based on seeing eye dogs. And for seeing eye dogs, that robotic training model is necessity, but not for medical alert service dogs, not for mobility dogs, not for any other kind of service dog, just seeing eye dogs. But because they were the first, that's the model everybody based everything off of. Just because it was the first doesn't mean it's ideal for any given disabled person's situation. You know, ethics goes other directions other than just the person with the leash in their hand. How ethical is it of these third party organizations to train to not teach their handlers the the importance of the ADA, that the important that it's a civil rights law? A lot of these people out there with leashes in their hands don't understand that it's a civil rights law, that handling a service dog is a matter of equality. You got handlers arguing for registries so that we can control the fake service dog problem, okay? Because they don't understand the law and they don't understand that what they're arguing for is stripping themselves of their own rights. This is a problem in the service dog community, folks. If you want to talk about being ethical handlers, let's talk about, first of all, making sure that accurate information is disseminated every time we share something. If you want to be ethical about it, then let's talk about, if you're wrong, admitting, you know what, I was mistaken. Somebody brought this to my attention. Here's the here's the facts. You want to talk about being ethical? Let's talk about the way we treat each other in these groups. Some of the worst, most horrendous behavior I have seen of one human being to another has been in service dog handler groups, where the judgiest of the most judgmental love to camp out and wait for somebody to attack. You know what? Especially right now, with things going the way they are right now in the United States, the last thing we need is that kind of bullshit. And it's absolutely bullshit. If your dog's healthy, other than whatever, missing an eye or missing a leg, if the dog's quality of life is good, work the dog. If you have a bond with the dog that itself has a disability, and that disability does not interfere with both the dog's quality of life and the dog's ability to assist you with tasks, work the dog. Don't worry about what other people say. What you know what? Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about the, and the thing that bothers me is a lot of the, and in some of these groups, it's the administrators. They will track you down. They'll stalk your Facebook page. They'll come on your personal feed and start slamming you because you're working a one-eyed dog, or you're working a three-legged dog, or you're working a dog that's tail got broken and had to be docked, or whatever. Are you doing everything you can to make sure that the dog's quality of life is as good as possible? The dog's as healthy as possible, other than that little thing. Then by all means, let the dog have a job. Heidi, let me tell you something about AKC registered show dogs. Top quality AKC registered show dogs. Um, a lot of those show dogs have been bred to a point where, yeah, they meet breed standard and look good at shows, but they're so neurotic and they have so many issues outside of the ring. It's not even funny. I would rather have a dog like Skeeter, he's not show quality. He is a purebred Alaskan Malamute from working lines. He's a working dog. Okay. Um, in fact, he's outside of standards. He's a bit bigger than standard. Standard male's supposed to range from 85 to 95 ish. Skeeter's 100. He's longer, lanker than some. Okay. But you know what make the best dogs most of the time are mutts. I love my purebred Alaskan Malamute. I will always love purebred Alaskan Malamutes. I bred purebred Alaskan Malamutes. They are an amazing breed. They are amazing animals. But some of the best dogs I've ever had have been mutts. Some of the health Skeeter is by far the healthiest dog I've ever had. Prior, it was a mutt named Shadow who had Malamute in him, but he was like Malamute and Lab or something. He was a mutt. Okay. And he was 17 years old when I had to let him go. Just because the dog's purebred, that just means the dog's purebred. It doesn't mean anything else. Yes, you can, to a degree, selectively breed for certain traits. Okay, that is possible. However, just because, look, I can tell you from sled dog running lines, just because you breed two great running dogs together doesn't mean that any of their litter is going to be great running dogs. Yeah, some groups you say, well, I want a German Shepherd, and they jump all over you. You can't. German Shepherds are terrible for PTSD service dogs. No, they're not. I can name 3 German Shepherd PTS dogs right now. 4 German Shepherd PTS dogs right now that are outstanding dogs. Layla with Detective Roberto Oviedo in New York. Our admin Blue Wolf's dog, Dino. Jeff Kreider's dog, whose name I'm blocking for some reason. Abby Ann, German Shepherd. My friend Alex Strub out in Seattle. Aria, his dog, German Shepherd. All outstanding. Let's talk about Malinois. I can name 2 Malinois off the top of my head. Argos, one of Admin Blackjack's service dog. And her dog before Argos was a German Shepherd, Jaeger. There's another one, Jaeger, John from the Jaeger Foundation, PTSD service dog, German Shepherd. People who say that breed can't be a good service dog are fucking full of shit. Excuse my fucking French, but no. Look, I had somebody try to argue with me that Skeeter, an Alaskan Malamute, was incapable of being a service dog because he was an Alaskan Malamute. This guy was a lawyer. I said, really? He's not trained to perform work or tasks to assist me with my disability? That's funny, you know? Okay. I actually kicked a guy out of the group about a couple of weeks ago over the subject of breeds. Okay. Because someone came in and said, I'm looking for a service dog. I need a service dog and I want to know what breed is best. I'm leaning towards X, Y, or Z. And I said, don't pick a specific breed. Find a dog that fulfills your needs. I didn't say don't get a purebred dog. I didn't say, if you don't rescue from a shelter, you're a worthless piece of shit. I said, don't get hung up on a specific breed. Choose a dog that fulfills your needs. And I got this guy jumped all over me for telling this guy not to get a purebred dog. And that's not what I bred fucking dogs, purebred, gave some away as service dogs. That is not what I said. I said, find a dog, whatever breed, that fulfills your needs. If you need mobility work and you weigh 235 pounds, then you need a large breed dog that can weigh at least a third of your weight for the dog's health and safety. So you're not going to pick an American Staffordshire Terrier. It's not tall enough or large enough to handle it. You're probably going to lean more towards like an Alaskan Malamute or a Great Dane or a Mastiff, a dog that's big enough. Okay. Or a mutt that's going to be 95 to 115 pounds. Okay. You find the dog that fulfills your needs. Well, I've always loved X, Y, and Z breed. Great. Good for you. Can the dog perform what you need the tasks that you need the dog to do? That's what's important. Can a Chihuahua perform PTSD tasks? Absolutely. I don't just need assistance with PTSD. I also need mobility assistance. So I have a giant monster dog because he is capable physically of providing the mobility assistance and support I need. Okay. Choose a dog that fulfills your needs. Don't get hung up on a breed. In the same kind of conversation in another group, I saw somebody had said, I'm thinking about getting an Australian Shepherd, and this was a great response. I thought another handler said, I loved Aussies and I had them all my life, and I thought I would get an Aussie too for my service dog, but I found, and I can't remember, whatever the dog's name is, and she's a golden retriever and she's absolutely incredible and she does everything I need. And I was absolutely convinced I had to have an Australian Shepherd because I grew up with them. Okay. She found the dog that fulfilled her needs. She found a dog that she had a bond with. The bond you form with your dog, especially for PTSD, is far more important than what breed it is. But if anybody look, I will tell you, Chihuahuas cannot perform mobility assistance tasks. You will break your Chihuahua if you try to use it for support and mobility assistance. Okay. But you know what? Chihuahuas can perform light retrieval tasks. Chihuahuas can pick your keys up if you drop them, if that's the extent of what you need. Okay. Find the dog that fulfills your needs. Why am I picking on Chihuahuas? Because I'm not a Chihuahua person. But I have utmost respect for people who train small dogs to be able to perform the tasks that they need, the assistance that person needs. Okay. Whether I like the breed or not doesn't matter. We want to talk about ethical handling. If we really want to talk about being ethical handlers, then we need to wrap our heads around it. We need to think about all these different aspects, not just, well, is the dog physically sound? Or if the dog is not physically sound, can the dog perform the tasks it needs to perform with its whatever's going on? Okay. We need, but that's not the only aspect of ethical. Okay. The other aspect of ethical is, look, is your dog having a bad day? It's just not getting together. Things just aren't right. Well, the ethical handler, the artful handler, after they see that the dog's just not having a good time, will turn around and go home and say, you know what, let's come back tomorrow. Let's go home and have a break. Okay. That's the ethical thing to do. Likewise, if your dog's sick, dog stays home. You stay home with your dog. Okay. That's ethical thing to do. You want to talk about being an ethical handler? Look about the way you behave in public when you are given an access challenge. We talked about this last week, folks. We talked about how you respond. If you're the ethical handler, if you're an artful handler, you respond like an adult. You calmly try to educate, and if that doesn't work, turn around and leave. Don't argue with these people to give them your money. Don't fight with them to make them take your money. You don't want me to come in here because I have a service dog? Fine. I will take my money elsewhere and I will file the appropriate complaints with the appropriate agencies. Okay. Don't be a dick. That is part of being an ethical handler, being an artful handler. Don't be a dick. Turn around, walk out, call the right place, file a complaint later. Hang on, Nevermore's messaging me. Let's make sure the world hasn't ended. Oh, dog crack. She's messaging me about dog crack. Um, we're gonna wrap up here in a few minutes. No, you know what? I think it was yes, BB bites Heidi. Yes, that's dog crack. I think it was Christine said there are two people who could make a determination whether or not it's ethical to handle a dog as a service dog. You and your veterinarian, and you're absolutely right. I will I will always say to anybody who's using a dog that may have a challenge itself, talk it over with your vet. Discuss health. Maybe even go to a behaviorist and talk about, say, if you're working a deaf dog, talk about repercussions because the animal can't hear. Okay. Um, Definitely discuss the health, the health ramifications of working a dog with a disability. I would always encourage that. Always talk to the vet about in regards to the dog's health. If you want to talk to somebody in regards to psychological and stuff, talk to a behaviorist. Vets don't have that training. Most vets. There are some who are behaviorists, but always consult with your vet um, about anything regards to the health of the dog. Uh, let's see. Christine says Gabriel had to relearn how to interact with his environment before he could go back to working after he went deaf. And the vet was he. I will assume, Christine, that he went deaf in 24 hours, and you said the vet was priceless. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Um, definitely, definitely, it's something like that. Look, Skeeter's 9. For a dog of his breed and his size, Skeeter is a senior dog. Expect I've got to get his thyroid worked up just to check. His grandpa's thyroid went when he was 10 or 11. So that's one thing I got to take a look at. Is, I mean, you want to talk about being an ethical handler? Take care of the health of your partner. I understand that Skeeter's a senior dog now, so I watch him very carefully. I know that I need to get his thyroid checked. Uh, I need to buckle down and find the money to get his hips x-rayed so I know exactly how bad the arthritis is. Although I have a pretty good gauge just watching him move. Um, and the minute that he's not responding to the CBD that I give him, he goes to the vet. But right now, the CBD does very well and helps him. And you can see on the mornings when he's stiff and when he gets his CBD, he's back. He's back in within 45 minutes. He's back on and jumping around, acting like a lunatic because he's not hurting. You can see it clearly. Um, these are the things. If you want to get into ethics, some of these people who harangue people about using a dog that might have 3 legs or is deaf or is missing an eye are the same people who have their pet, their ESA, that's not their service dog, and it's a 40-pound Chihuahua because the poor thing's so overweight. And these are the people who are screaming about ethics online. Go fuck yourself. You don't know a damn thing about ethics if you have a dog that obese or a cat and you think it's funny or cute. Yeah. Let me tell you. Let me tell you something. Like I said earlier, when you point one finger at somebody, there are 3 pointing right back at you. Okay. And 9 times out of 10, those people who are screaming about ethics in Facebook groups are ignoring those 3 fingers pointing back at them. I don't put up with that shit in this group and PTSDog group. I will not put up with that shit. And it will get you bounced out of the group immediately. If somebody is egregiously doing something that is damaging to their dog, by all means, bring it to the attention of the admins. All right. Next week, we're going to talk about equipment. And we are not going to talk about equipment the way you think we're going to talk about equipment. What we're going to talk about is the use of equipment. And by equipment, I mean martingales, pinch collars, shock collars, snoot loops. Okay. We're going to talk about that next week. You may not like what I have to say about it, but the reason I'm going to say what I'm going to talk to you guys about next week, and the reason I'm going to do this is because I want you to think. Okay. I want you to think about it. I need to wrap up. I'm about done. You can hear my voice is getting gravelly, and my sugar's starting to drop. But do not come next week prepared for a big discussion about training and how to fix this and how to fix that. That's not what we're talking about equipment about. Okay, it goes back to the artful handling concept and ethics for that matter. All right, and I just challenge you. Come talk with us next week. We're going to talk about equipment. We're going to talk about pros and cons. We're going to talk about theory. I don't know if we want to call it theory. Well, it is kind of theory. We're going to talk about the theory behind using equipment, accountability, responsibility, and training. Christine, art. Thanks for joining me. I'm trying to figure out what the deal is with the Facebook Live dropping out thing. If you came in because Facebook Live dropped out, thank you. I will work with Bo at DV Radio. We're gonna figure out what's going on with this sucker one way or another. I am gonna wrap it up. Join us next week, 1 o'clock Friday afternoon. We'll do this again. As long as the United States is self-isolating and we've got nothing better to do, we can keep having these talks. I did remember to hit record this time. So I will be uploading the video later this afternoon to the PTSDog YouTube channel, and I'll drop a link in the group. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon and have a good, safe weekend.